Welcome to Snakes and Otters, a pointless discussion of eternal questions. Get ready, we're about to live in your head rent-free. This is episode 101.
I am Martin.
And I'm Robert.
And I'm Francis.
Welcome back, listeners. We are doing our pop culture episode this week. If you pay attention, you notice it's in the wrong week. We are on the 5th Friday of the month. Because last week we did our 100th episode.
Which was
a Hoopajube!
That's right.
Normally this would be a Hoopajube week.
We jumped the Hoopajube ahead a week.
Yeah, we figured the celebration of what it means to be Snakes and Otters had to go on the 100th episode and a Hoopajube. So this week we are going to talk about pop culture. And it is a pop culture event that is internationally known, but it is uniquely local to where we live.
Right.
We are talking about the Kentucky Derby.
Yes.
A sporting event.
Yes.
That becomes a cultural event.
Yes.
Much like the Super Bowl.
Much like the Super Bowl. Only this has been around a lot longer.
Right.
But it only lasts 2 minutes.
But it only lasts 2 minutes.
Fastest 2
Much
minutes
like
in
some of
sports.
us. Anyways.
None of us here, surely.
Well done, Robert.
That's
well
right.
done.
Sorry.
I had not anticipated setting you up for that one, but as I've often said, Martin is a really good volleyball setter. I will pop it up in the air and let someone else slam it over the net.
Yes.
Well done.
Not only am I a hammer, I am a spiker.
Well, we've often thought about that. As the three of us, somebody's got to be the server, the setter, and the spiker.
Yes.
So, I think
Well, and it does rotate.
Yeah.
it does. Yeah.
Yes. So, anyways, Kentucky Derby. Almost everybody has heard of it. If you've not heard of it, what rock have you been living under? Because literally, it is culturally, it is the biggest horse race in the United States. It is the first leg of the Triple Crown.
Mm-hmm.
And it is televised nationally and internationally. We have visitors from all over the world come here for Derby Week. We have famous celebrities, movie stars, TV stars, politicians, you name it.
Anybody who wants to see and be seen puts the Derby on their calendar.
That's right.
Exactly.
Fashion Week in New York or whatever else is out there that people like that do. We don't know. But.
Right. It is the Kentucky equivalent of a red carpet premiere. Red carpet walk at a premiere.
Yeah, we get it every year. And it's our moment as both a state and a city to shine. Hopefully.
It really is. So just a little bit of background on the Derby, just to make sure we're all clear on what we're talking about. So it started in, I think it was 1876, I think is the date. And it started out as a 1.5-mile race. It is now 1.25 miles. And it's open to 3-year-olds, both fillies and colts. It is mostly for the boys. It is a rare filly that runs. But we've also had fillies that have won.
Yep.
Which I think is a great thing, because I like those underdogs. And, they're never the favorite to win. Because, the boys are just, the colts they're just bigger. They're faster, generally. It's nature. The fastest time ever run?
1:59 by Secretariat, 1973.
Exactly. Secretariat is Mrs. Roberts' favorite. Probably every one of us has a favorite when it comes to... And I could be wrong about it, but I'm pretty sure Secretariat is her favorite. There's often been rivalries in the races. We don't think about that, horses having rivals, but it's true. In the 70s, there were a couple of sets of...
Affirmed and Alydar.
Affirmed and Alydar was probably the most famous. You can make the argument that the one was not as great without the other pushing them.
They were the Fraser and Ali of the horse racing world.
They really were.
At
Very
that
nice,
time.
sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it's the 70s.
Joel
that was
Frazier.
78?
78, yeah.
Yeah, and this was right after Seattle Slew had won the Triple Crown the year before, which doesn't happen very often. And next thing you know, well, we won't see that one again. Boom! Next year, Affirmed wins it, and they're thinking, "Wow, we're gonna hear this forever." And then we go, "How long before it happens?" Just recently is the last time.
Yeah. So, since you've brought up the Triple Crown, again, I mentioned it's the first leg. We've got the Preakness and the Belmont are the last 2 legs, and they are nationally televised, but they don't get nearly the press. The Belmont probably gets more than the Preakness, presuming a horse has won both the Belmont, or both the Derby and the Preakness, because then everyone wants to see if they win the Triple Crown.
And it's happened.
And it's New York.
And it's New York.
Yeah,
who cares?
It doesn't happen often, but it's been almosted a lot of times.
Yes, it is very difficult to win. It happens a lot. You get the first 2. It's very difficult to win the third.
Belmont's a longer race.
It's a longer race, yes.
And horses, like a lot of other athletes, are a little more specialized now.
Yes.
And the compactness of the schedule is difficult.
Yes.
Because the races are only weeks apart.
Yeah, I think three weeks, I think, generally, give or take. I'm not remembering that exactly.
Of course, it's the first weekend in May for the Derby. I think the Preakness is usually only 2 weeks later.
Okay.
And then the Belmont is in June.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think it is 3 weeks past. But it's still a very compacted schedule.
With travel. And travel wears out the horses. It does.
So it's felt that it's more challenging now than it ever has been for horses. And again, that long stretch until just the other 2 years ago, I guess it was, when somebody pulled it off. It was becoming more and more rare.
Right, yeah, it just doesn't happen.
Right. So in the horse racing world, those of us here in Louisville would say this is the biggest race, but it's actually not. This is actually considered, along with a race in England, the top at a certain place. And it says, according to my source, outside the Breeders' Cup, which kind of makes sense because the Breeders' Cup is the for older horses, so a little bit more mature. Theoretically, they're faster because they're literally adults. 3-year-olds are not considered adult horses. They're still, that's why I still call them colts and fillies instead of stallions and mares.
Right.
And which kind of boggles our mind when we think about that. Is, well, how can anything be bigger than the Derby? But in the horse racing world, it can be.
Well, we've also hosted the Breeders' Cup many times.
We have many times.
There's significant purses attached to those races as well.
Right. More so than the Derby, quite often. The Derby itself currently is offering a $3 million purse. That's just recent. Prior to that, for about 20 years, it was a $2 million purse. Prior to that, it was $1 million. And each time they've gone to those levels, that's been a huge deal.
Yeah.
But now with off-track betting and all the things that go into it, they can offer more money. So it is a big deal. We go on and on about the history. It's been going, other than last year, it's always been the first Saturday in May. Mm-hmm. Last year being 2019 during the pandemic, it was moved to September, which just felt wrong always about it.
And it's even been run during the war. I mean, even times when you couldn't run the Indianapolis 500 during the war, they still ran the Derby and still ran it in May.
That's right. Any war, doesn't matter. I mean, it was literally the one constant. Yeah. The Belmont and the Preakness have both had some hiatuses. 3 years for, I think, the Belmont and 2 years for the Preakness. Or I could have that reversed, but both of them were short-lived hiatuses. And it is such a big deal. The naming rights have been, it's not quite as bad as, some of the naming rights that you see, because it's still the Kentucky Derby, but there are definitely sponsorships.
It's presented by, rather than say the college football bowl games, whose actual names get transmuted into the sponsors.
Right.
The Peach Bowl becomes a Chick-fil-A bowl.
Right, or the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. That sort of thing.
So they're trying to retain a little bit of dignity and have it be presented by a sponsor.
Which, actually, I think that is much better.
Yes.
If you're going to do it, that's much better. Of course, bourbon is a big thing with the Derby.
Yep.
That's right.
Now, the mint julep is for the tourists.
Yes.
Real Kentuckians do not drink mint juleps. If they do, why?
Why?
Well, if they have guests that they're trying to not offend, that might happen.
That might happen,
Yeah,
yes.
if you have some out-of-state guests, you might make up the mint julep. But basically, I always say, here's how you make a mint julep. You make the simple syrup, you muddle the mint leaves, and then you throw all that shit down the sink and pour yourself a good glass of bourbon and have a seat. That's how you make it. That's really how you make a mint julep.
That's right.
That is the best recipe I've ever heard for a mint julep.
Very good, sir.
Because why taint a good bourbon with that? Oh, yes. So
I mean, mint's good stuff, but
sure, any of the things by themselves are good, but some things just should not be mixed.
Yeah.
It's like you would not pour a Coke into a Pappy Van Winkle without getting shot.
At the very least, you should have a nun wrap your fingers with a ruler.
Exactly.
Because that's like speaking out of turning class. You just don't do that.
Yeah. So, it's a big deal, and in the horse racing world, it's been a big deal for a long time. because it's also a showcase. There's also several races leading up to it.
It's the beginning of the season,
right?
Basically,
in the north.
I'm glad you mentioned that because there is a seasonal component to this. Spring is finally here when the Derby happens, even though it might be cold as all get out on the day.
Yes, we consider spring is here seasonally, but it's not the first race of the racing season.
By no means, it's
the first race of the northern, because we are the most southern site for the northern racing season, for lack of a term. But I mean, there's racing going on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the
even in Louisville.
What do they call those? The prep races.
Yeah, all the prep
Arkansas
races.
Derby, Florida Derby, Bluegrass Stakes. Those all happen kind of that starting February.
It's like spring
March.
training.
Yeah, February, March timeframe, April timeframe, as things open back up in Florida and things like that.
Right.
In the South, and that's how you judge who's going to run in the Derby, is how horses do in those prep races in Florida, California, places like that. But it's kind of that signal, that green light that spring is here, because if you don't live in Louisville or you don't live in Kentucky, you've probably never heard this, but they'll tell you don't put your plants out until Derby.
Right.
Because you're past the chance of a frost.
Right.
When you get to Derby, in other places I'm sure they say, well, here's your date for putting your plants out where you're past the frost. But here in Louisville, weathermen will tell you, okay, we're at Derby. Don't put your plants out until Derby.
Right. It's like saying, in other parts of the country, they'd say, you can't wear white before Easter. We'd probably say, don't wear white before Derby.
Yeah.
So, and, it's a big deal here in town.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And we have all of these things leading up. It's a 3-week Derby festival. I actually used to work for Kentucky Derby Festival store. They were like an official supplier of Kentucky Derby stuff. Mm-hmm. And they lost the contract for a while. I don't know if they still have it. But, the posters are a big deal. There's all kinds of merchandise. Glasses, hats, shirts. Just tons and tons of stuff.
Kickoff lunches, my goodness, they're everywhere.
Right. There's the fireworks.
Thunder over Louisville.
Which that really kicks off the Derby Festival season, as short as it is. Mm-hmm. You've got the parade, the boat race. You've got the run for the rosé. All these different sub-events.
Yeah, it was always, and there's a rhythm to them.
Yes.
The weekend before Derby is always sort of this balloon.
The balloon race.
The balloon races. Yeah. So hot air balloons. The weather rarely cooperates anymore, seems like, with the hot air balloons. But so they mutated that into balloon glow, where you go and you see the people fill the hot air balloons first thing in the morning or the night before. So you see the flames in the dark, filling the hot air balloons,
which is really cool.
It's super. The photography of that, people take awesome photographs and they're amazing.
And during the race, there's a balloon chase. I mean, it is a big deal. People get up early and they will follow the balloons all over.
Yeah, wherever they go in the city.
Yeah.
And of course, as the city has grown, there's fewer places to land the balloons too.
Yeah.
All those old fields in the eastern part of the city are subdivisions now.
Right.
Got to go a little further out. Yeah.
So, and then let's see, Wednesday was always the
parade day. Wasn't it?
No, steamboat race.
Steamboat race, right. Thursday is parade day.
Thursday's parade Wednesday is always the steamboat race. The Belle of Louisville takes on a comer from somewhere else.
It's usually the Delta Queen from down the road. They had the Natchez for a while, which was further down the Mississippi they would bring in. Usually it's the rivalry is between the Delta Queen, which...
Oh, it's Cincinnati,
I think
maybe.
Yeah, it's from Cincinnati, and it's a much larger boat.
Correct. It's kind of like, well, this is not really a thing, but it really, it's the Belle wins sometimes, the Delta Queen wins sometimes.
Yeah,
it's just kind
if
of a
they
thing.
find ways to make this be a thing where, okay, well, the Belle got help to turn around or whatever to make it, but it's these paddle wheel steamboats from
reminiscent of
the history of the river from the 1800s. One of those is still active here in Louisville, the Belle of Louisville, and
you can ride on it. You can take trips on it. It's in financial difficulty, from what I understand.
It almost always is.
Especially
now, because last year nobody's been able to ride it.
That's right.
Yeah, because the idea is a party boat.
Right.
Oh yeah,
with a giant paddle wheel.
and they've done very, very well with that.
And you can't cram anybody on the bell right now. So,
Right.
So then Thursday and the Pegasus Parade is fairly old-fashioned kind of deal. It's a parade down Broadway, one of the widest streets.
You've marched in it, haven't you?
Yes. The Fraser History Museum often participates, and will ask folks that are attached to the museum, the volunteers and the employees, to put on costumes from their, historical reenactments and march in the parade.
Right, and you were doing some stuff down there for a while.
I wore chainmail one time and marched. Let me tell you something. Don't wear white shoes. is my advice, because you don't expect it, but wow, it really kicks up a lot of stuff off the street.
I bet.
And turns your shoes dark. So, but yeah, it's a really old fashioned style parade with
Grand Marshals,
the balloons.
The whole thing.
They always get somebody come in and be a
the
Grand
Marshal
Marshal.
is a big deal to be selected.
It is.
Usually it's somebody very famous. Sometimes it's somebody who is topically famous. Like in 1991, they had General Schwarzkopf come, or maybe it was in 92.
Might have been the 92 parade after, yes.
Yeah, because 91 might not have been soon enough for everything to have been taken care of overseas.
Right.
But he was the Grand Marshal. That was a big deal to have him. And it's an honor to be selected.
It is, yeah.
It really is.
Shatner's done it, I know.
Yes, Shatner's done it.
There's others.
Plenty of famous people. I'm sure you could see who the list is, but and it's a big deal to go down.
Yeah.
They set it up days in advance, and they televise it here locally. It's not nationally televised, but that's all right.
It's every bit as sophisticated as the Tournament of Roses parade and Macy's. I mean, it's smaller, of course, but it's it's meant to be professionally done, like those events.
Yeah,
right.
But
you've seen those.
It's high school bands and Shriners and balloons and the whole bit.
Yep.
So a fun thing. Thursday,
the Derby Princesses are part of that parade.
Yes, the Kentucky Derby, the Derby Festival Court, I think they call it, where they have select some college age young ladies from here in town or from the state.
From the state,
yeah, and they become the festival queen and her court,
right, and which are ambassadors for the program,
and
for the company, and Churchill Downs. Which we haven't actually mentioned that.
We will get to that shortly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Thursday has also turned into kind of a day for the locals to go to the track. So it's been termed Thurby.
Thurby, yes. We used to go on Oaks Day.
Which is, the Friday, the day before the Derby.
Which is when the Phillies run their version of the Derby.
Yeah.
The Kentucky Oaks.
But the Oaks has been taken over by all the people that come in because they realize, this is a thing too. Let's go to that. And I won't say they've ruined it for the locals, but kinda.
Well, yeah, because it used to be a lot of the businesses here locally, they'd shut down on Oaks Day. A lot of them
still do.
A lot of them still do. And
schools would shut down.
Schools would shut down. Yeah.
I mean,
people could go to the track.
It's written into the teachers' contracts to be off. It's one of those days, in service day or whatever, but it's in the union contract. No school on Oaks Day that Friday in May. Bellarmine's done with classes by Derby.
Yes. By Thursday.
Yes.
It's always by... Now, this year with the Derby being on the 1st, that might be kind of... Well, with the pandemic, that's throwing everything into it. But, when it comes a little bit later, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, finals at Bellarmine are the week of Derby.
Yep.
And then you're done with your finals, and we're out at Derby.
Yep. Which is a fantastic thing. So that's how it culturally is impacted the city. And, we were talking about Thunder over Louisville. One of the greatest things about Thunder is not just the fireworks, but the air show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In the 90s, they used to bill this as Louisville as having the 4th largest air force in the world because of all the military planes and the helicopters and everything else that were here and flying in the show. That's how many we had. I mean, when you think about it, that's no small feat.
Right.
It's a hell of an air show.
It really is.
Well, how many hundreds of thousands of people gather down on the river that day?
More than actually even go to the track. If the weather's good, both sides of the river will have 200,000 people
easily
crammed into the open spaces around around the river because
Yeah.
it's all done right over the river.
Yeah, the 2nd Street Bridge is closed, and that's where all the fireworks come from. They take the whole thing over.
Yeah,
And,
and barges on the river parked, ready to shoot the fireworks, and tons of stuff shot off the bridge.
Right.
Yeah.
Cannon and everything.
And that's a great event unto itself. As a group with our wives, we went one year. Was it all of us, or did
I did not go.
you did not? Okay, because it was a long time ago.
Crowds.
Yeah. Well, and it's the kind of thing where if you can handle being out in the heat, because it was a hot day that day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it was,
some days you never know in April. Yeah,
exactly. But it was everybody was shorts, t-shirt kind of hot day, and it was great. The air show was just phenomenal. The fireworks. It's considered one of the best fireworks shows in the world, not just nationally.
Yeah.
I mean, it is that good and that long. The 4th of July fireworks we do here doesn't hold a candle.
It's
Most
half
places,
an hour.
Yeah.
Half an hour of continuous fireworks.
Most places, the 4th of July fireworks is the big deal. Not here. It's the Derby one. And going home that night, now, that was just a cluster. Getting out of it is probably the worst part.
It's really, because Louisville's not set up to have a crowd of 200,000 people streaming back out to go back to the suburbs.
It's probably better than it used to be.
Yeah, they've made a lot of strides to try to
but
make that happen.
it's still, there's no place that's set up for that. I mean, realistically. So all of these events lead up to the big day at Churchill Downs.
Yeah.
And Churchill Downs itself is iconic. We talk about the Twin Spires.
Yep.
Now, Twin Spires are a little bit hidden now because they have built up these massive
Huge
corporate boxes.
Yeah, grandstands up to the top.
They left the spires where they were, and the spires are no longer the tallest portion, I think. They may go above, but I don't think they do.
Not
I think
that
it's,
much, yeah.
Yeah. And you can still see them, but you got to be standing right behind them to see them.
Well, they've also cleared out a lot of the areas around there too. It was a lot harder to get through in the 80s. The one time that I went, it was really, there was no, Central Avenue has now come straight through there, and it's huge and it's wide and it's easy to get in and out.
Yes,
it was
much
were
better.
all little bitty old streets for a long time.
Yeah, but that's an important part of the idea of the track is the track's right in the middle of old neighborhoods, or was.
Right, yeah.
I mean, houses and neighborhood went right up to the gate.
Exactly,
Yes.
and they had to
And still
basically,
do.
in certain areas, they had to kind of, they made it a little easier. They bought up a lot of stuff, but it's
that's been something that Churchill Downs has been doing over the last 25 years or so, is buying up lots of space around the track, and the neighborhoods were decaying.
They were, it's not the best area of town.
And so they're trying to kind of make this buffer. I think long term the idea is maybe someday a hotel with a casino. Someday.
I don't know. Well, unless they own the casino, Churchill Downs will never want that.
Well, no, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
They're going to own the
Yeah.
hotel and casino.
Yeah.
The idea is to have all of that.
That is the only way casino gambling will ever be legalized in the state of Kentucky, is if Churchill Downs has a piece of something.
Well, that's why they're backing it. They want to, because they already sort of have this gambling of like machines that run based on old horse races.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is something we didn't mention, but Paramutual Wagering is thought to be different than like casino wagering. Paramutual Wagering is the purse comes out of what's been bet on that race based on the odds of that horse winning. Whereas like casino gambling's thought of as just purely, strictly a luck thing.
Right.
So
Depending on whether or not you believe the house is honest.
yeah, but Paramutual Wagering is supposed to have some measure of skill to it, like poker playing, I guess. So Paramutual Wagering is legal in Kentucky and has been for generations, but so far casino gambling is not, even though
It's been pushed a lot.
in most places it's right across the street kind of thing, because Indiana has that and Illinois I think has it.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not to say we don't have other kinds of gambling, because you can get a gambling permit and you can gamble at your local church picnic.
Yeah, but it's a different animal. They're wanting to really industrialize.
Well, that's it exactly. Because you can do some casino type gambling at the church picnic, but it's a one-time permit. it's permitted that allows you to do it. So like bingo for money.
It's charity based. Yeah.
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 But yeah, it's when you want to gamble in Kentucky, Derby.
Yeah. So I think that's where people that are advocating for casino gambling are hoping to go. To me, again, I get that gambling can be a regressive tax on people. And I get that it has its dangers, but if you already have wagering at the track, I'm kind of like, well, the egg's broken. Why are you trying to separate the yolk? Let's just do this. Let's put the hotel and the casino right next to Churchill Downs. Let them own it, and let's start a shuttle service from the airport to it.
Yeah, because it's not that far.
And let's get the suckers in here. And
very good word that you use.
Let's start hoovering their wallet, yeah. Because only suckers buck the tiger. The odds are all on the house.
Oh, yes. That's the Tombstone quote. I knew it was coming. I could just sense it in the air. I knew that was happening, yes.
Yeah, I'm a little mixed on that because, it's like the lottery.
It is, yes.
In many ways. It's not to say I've never bought a lottery ticket. Because when my office, all of them are buying a lottery ticket when that pot gets really big, hell yes, I'm putting my money in that because I am not going to be the last idiot sitting there after they've all quit because they won the lottery.
Well, at least you get to be the CEO that way.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It's a promotion. But still, I'd have to be working. It's a lark.
Yeah, well, you buy
but those
the lottery
people who buy
tickets,
$100 worth of tickets every week, man, that's...
Yeah, that's... I have very moral issues with legalized gambling because I think it definitely is predatory. And
it can be, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The lottery is less so because,
Yeah, everybody plays, but it can be very predatory on low income.
Correct.
Because they don't get that it's an amazing long shot. Like you have almost the same probability as getting kicked by a zebra in your house. Not in Africa, but in your house, as you do of winning one of these big prizes.
Yeah, it's
right. Yeah, getting struck by lightning is easy compared to winning some of this stuff here, and I have issues with that because I think it enables it's predatory. I mean, it takes advantage of the poor and the lowly and those in need, who are betting themselves on a hope that's essentially false.
Yeah. Well, but I don't have a problem with if you make minimum wage and you want to spend your $5 or $10 a week on your lottery tickets. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, that's
the people who spend way more.
Yeah, it's the dream, a little bit of hope.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Well, and
a little bit of entertainment.
It's marketed as more than that, though. It's marketed as this dream that there's a reason that Caesar's Palace is.
Somebody's got to win. Why not you?
Yeah, that's
the whole lotto thing.
Yeah, it's
But horse racing is a little bit different in that most people, that's not their go-to.
Right.
Now there are guys that will get addicted.
Yeah.
And that's where they blow their money.
That destroys families. It's really awful.
Yeah. But that's true of any kind of
vice.
Dare
we say it?
Well, almost anything that is virtuous can be turned into a vice.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
That's what makes most things a sin is you've taken something good and you've perverted it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and horse racing is an entertainment, as a sport. It's not really, in and of itself, it's not inherently evil.
Correct.
It's the misuse.
That's right.
And you can make the argument that Derby, along with anything else, can promote that. But
it's you can say it's exploitative of the animals.
Yeah.
That's always one of those things where I think someday this might all go away because people feel it's too abusive of the animals. And again, the thoroughbreds have gotten fragile.
We had one not that long ago that died.
Right.
Something's been going on in California where they had several die all at once. In a couple of different.
I missed that.
It was last year before last, something like that.
Yeah,
it was like, what in the world's going on? It was like the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
For a while.
That shows the people who are what I would expect trying to cheat the system because it is a very big deal. They test the animals for performance enhancing drugs.
Yeah.
Just think about it. They used to put sponges up the nose, which I never really understood what that had to do with, but ways to not put as much weight in the saddle. Because they weigh the jockey in the saddle before they get on the horse, and then they weigh them when they get off to make sure that nobody's cheated. So each horse is carrying the same amount of weight.
Yeah.
Unless you're filly, then you get by with 5 pounds less.
I think the thing right now that the racing organizations are moving towards is eliminating the diuretics.
Yes.
From the horses, because that was, make them go constantly. Mm-hmm. Get that water weight off of them.
Yep.
So I think there's that potential for abusing the animals that I think to their credit, the horse racing industry is beginning to understand. This will all go away if people feel like it's abusive.
Well, honestly, you've seen
you better
similar
protect
things
yourself
in other places. There's it waxes and wanes, but there's been serious talk about what to do about football because of the concussions.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and
that's a very real thing.
It has changed a lot, just in high school sports and grade school sports a lot. Here locally, parish I work with used to be at the top. Well, all of the football here locally was huge just 20 years ago. But once the movie comes out and other things like that, and you start talking about this stuff, they're saying, well, maybe this is not the way to do this.
It might be best to not have 10 and 11-year-olds plowing their heads into each other.
That's correct. Yeah.
It may not be best to have 25-year-olds plowing their heads into one another.
And it will. There will be.
But especially with the parishes, Pop Warner style. It was called the Toy Bowl.
That's right. Yes, and that was a big deal.
It was a big deal because then the kids are feeders into St. X and Trinity.
Yep.
And listeners, if you're not familiar, the St. Xavier High School and Trinity High School, the two biggest Catholic high schools in this town. Their annual football game is played in the college stadium with about 35,000 spectators.
That's right.
If you imagine a high school football game with 30,000 people in a stand, and it's not even in Texas.
Yeah, I was going to say, people in Texas are going, that's all?
That's all. But that's big.
Yeah.
That's big.
It's a huge rivalry.
Considering most football games are, if you got 1,000 people, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And
that's for homecoming.
200 of them are the students.
Right.
So that's another huge event in this town that's a kind of a cultural touchstone that even people who aren't Catholic know about and understand happens. And you're like, well, we got to go out. Oh, no, this is the ex-Trinity weekend.
You don't want to go anywhere.
You don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, be somewhere else that weekend. Eat on the other side of town that weekend.
Well, and for a lot of us here in Louisville, Derby Day has become that way too.
Mm-hmm.
So all of us have been to Derby, correct?
I have not been to Derby. I've been to the track.
Okay, so I have been to the Derby once.
Me too, once.
But it's kind of like saying I've been to Niagara Falls, having been sealed in a barrel and gone over the edge. I've kind of been there. It's like saying I've been to Arizona because I flew in there once and then sat
in the terminal of the airport
or on the tarmac. For people to get on and off.
Because the most common experience for a local is the infield.
And the infield is an animal unto itself, and I use the word animal very specifically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when we went, very early 90s, we lived in Old Louisville, and a bunch of friends of Mrs. Roberts' best friend, who are big partiers. I think they had some friends who were from the town they went to high school in up in northern Kentucky, Erlanger. A bunch of people came in, they crashed on our floor, and then we got up early and we went to the infield. And, not being big drinkers and partiers, it was not an experience I care to repeat because it was all about getting drunk all day.
It was, it's more than that. The infield can be how far can you debase yourself?
Yeah.
And get people to notice.
Oh, yes. Naked women running around and, sex under blankets and all sorts of stuff going on. I've heard those stories too.
Yeah. Lots of vomiting.
Yeah, lots. Yes.
Yeah, great. And there's always, what creative way can we sneak alcohol into...
Hollow out the loaf of bread and put the bottle in there, that kind of thing, Because it's not supposed to be brought in. They're supposed to check you. A lot of the checks are kind of, okay, go ahead, with your eyes closed kind of thing.
Yeah.
Wow,
so many people love to drink orange juice.
Yes.
screwdrivers, at least at one time, were very
But it
popular.
is an all-day thing. I mean, if you're not there by 9 a.m., you're not going to... Yeah, you're not going to...
Because you won't find a spot to throw your blanket down.
Yeah, you're not going to get anywhere close to the fence where you can see anything.
Well, and there's only a small part that you can actually see anything. And
yeah.
that was the thing, I was like, I can't even see the damn race.
Yeah. So the infield literally is the inside of an oval track. With no stands.
Right. You're on blankets.
It's like going to the park all day.
Yeah.
Only worse. Way worse.
Because everyone's drunk and throwing up around you.
Yeah. I mean, by the end of the day, I mean 4, 5, 6 o'clock. Because now the Derby used to be like 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's now, we're lucky that
6:20, 6:30. Yeah. Television asked them to push
it back. Yeah.
But there's an all-day race card. I mean, if you can see, you can watch races all day long, and they're usually really good races.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, and there's even one after the Derby. Derby's not the last race of the day. There's one more that takes place after.
And, for those of us that have Derby parties, that's a thing. We will often cut up the names, and everybody draws a name, and, you put your dollar in, and it's a random thing, and you win a pot during the... but at the very least, everybody does that for Derby. They put their money in, and you pick random.
Yeah, and people gather at houses all over the city that don't go to the track, and we watch it.
Yeah, and it's still a big party day if you don't go.
And everybody, sings "My Old Kentucky Home" when it's played. It's a big thing.
Presuming that they will still allow us to do that.
That's correct.
That's a song that has
cancel potential.
Potential.
The lyrics have been altered.
Yes, that's true.
So that shouldn't be a big problem, but it once was. But that's correct. That's correct.
We're at a point though where even if you try to fix something, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So, but that's an entirely different discussion. I don't want to go there. But it's an experience. I think everybody who lives in Louisville should go to the Derby once, whether it's the infield or the track. Mrs. Robert would like to go back on Derby Day and sit in the stands or
be in the stands.
Be in a box if we can.
Be where the civilized people are.
Less uncivilized anyway.
Well, yeah. Well, I went one time, 1988, the coldest day on record, and got pneumonia as a result. I'm not a big fan of ever going back.
Well, yeah. I see. It's like me. I would never go back to the infield.
No.
It just did not appeal to me.
But let's see. The normally Friday Oaks is 120 to 130,000 people.
Sounds right.
And Derby is usually well over 150. And if the weather gets nice, it tickles closer to 160.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that's an enormous crowd for this town.
Mm-hmm.
Enormous. So
that's a big crowd anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, that's more than any college football stadium. Even the Big House only holds officially like 105 to 110,000.
Yeah. Neyland Stadium in Tennessee and the Big House kind of like to trade that back and forth of trying to say it. Well, we're at 107, and we're at 108, we're at 110.
Yeah. Knock out that pillar. We can get 5 more people to stand there.
Yeah. So obstructed view, too bad. You're packing in so we can claim 110.
Exactly. And the Big House, of course, is Michigan Stadium in Ann Arbor. But, yeah, so 160, that's a big deal no matter where you are. And especially for a town our size, that is massive.
Mm-hmm.
And because we don't have a professional sports team here, except for U of L.
But it's kind of part of the fun for a local. Again, a lot of this is outside of town people coming in for a party, celebrities,
the hats.
So that's a big part of it. Is you watch the airplanes at the airport because the airport is. Unusually for big towns or any town, it's kind of right in the middle of town.
Right,
it's not way out in the middle of nowhere.
Louisville
it's right by the
interesting
expressway.
Town. The way it developed. It was never the metropolis that New York, Chicago, Boston, those kind of big cities are, or even Cincinnati. Well, Cincinnati has the benefit of having Cincinnati Airport actually in Kentucky.
Yeah,
but. It started out as a relatively small town on the river and slowly spread. Well, when the airport was put in, it was in the outskirts. Even though it's still in the same county, it was on the outskirts of town. But town grew up all around it. So now it's literally in the middle of town. Ideally, we would shut that thing down and move it to Bullitt County.
Yeah.
But we're not going to do that.
We're not going to do that.
There's too much money in it. But it really shouldn't be there. It really shouldn't be there. And we actually have a second airport. Bowman Field. So, and some planes, some famous people will fly in there because it's the only place they can get a slot.
Yeah.
So,
But it can't handle much.
No,
You'd have to have a very
it's private
small
planes.
yeah, it's private planes. That's what I'm talking about.
It's general aviation.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that even UPS has to adjust their schedule around Derby.
Yeah.
It's that big.
But if you have a Gulfstream 5, you'll be at what it's called Muhammad Ali International Airport now. Used to be called Standiford, then it was Louisville International because one flight went to Mexico, so it became an international airport.
Right.
or Canada. But
it has to go directly. That's the thing.
Yeah. So, but now it's Muhammad Ali International Airport.
Yes. Its 3-letter designation is still SDF.
Yeah.
Standard.
And it's super cool to see Gulfstreams and private jets all parked along there because you can see them from the expressway.
Yeah.
And then it's a real event then to how people dress because again it's springtime, so you're supposed to kind of wear that Easter spring sort of outfit.
Right.
Gentlemen in a jacket usually.
Yes. Blazers over white pants, preferably, because it's spring.
Yeah.
Yep.
Suits are not real suits are not the preferred.
Yeah, you can't really get away with the white, or if you can't get away with white pants, you do the chino, khaki type thing. But generally, you wear that nice, colorful blazer, and a gentleman could wear a fedora.
Yes, or a straw hat.
A boater type hat.
Yeah.
But the ladies wear what are called either fascinators, which are just, I think, usually like pinned to your hair with flowers.
Well, he knows more about that than I do.
Or the classic floppy hat for ladies.
There's all types that are seen. Yeah,
yes,
you see that
and
everywhere.
the most outrageous hat has become an unofficial contest.
Yeah, so they usually put you on the local TV if your hat is then built and has plastic horses and toys and
the more ornate
Legos.
the hat that you can still hold your head up and not fall over, the better. Which is that's part of the thing that locals get into. To see what kind of idiots people make of themselves. And then there's the private parties. There's the Barnstable Gala.
Yeah, Barnstable Brown Party, and those are usually done for charity. There's usually some kind of charity component to that. So there's a lot of charity components built around.
There is
around Derby. That's been really nice, and Derby feeds the economy here.
It really does. Without Derby, I don't know. I mean, this economy would be totally.
Last year was a good example because that really hurt a lot of things.
Oh yeah, because even though they had it in September, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, the hospitality industry alone depends a whole lot on that. Yeah,
yes.
It's
the hotels are full.
Absolutely.
And so...
people rent out houses all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. That happens with a lot of sporting events, neighborhoods around golf courses that hold PGA events. Those folks usually take a trip and then Airbnb their houses.
Yeah.
We've been doing that for a long time around here.
Yeah.
Even before Airbnb was a thing.
That's right.
If you had enough money, you could rent somebody's house here in town.
Yeah. All the people that live around the track, they rent out their front lawns for parking.
For parking spaces.
And make some extra dough.
Yeah.
Not much because it's an all day, but if you're doing it all week now, you can rack up some money.
Yeah, you can make several $100s easily in a few days.
Pay for that new Xbox.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's the Derby. It's one of those great traditions that is fun. There's not a whole lot that, other than my old Kentucky home, that they have adjusted to for modern sensibilities.
Yeah.
That you can ascribe negative things to. Animal rights people saying, "Well, what about the horses?" Get a life.
Heavily regulated.
It is heavily regulated.
That's correct.
But it really, it's one of those things that really does bring the entire city together.
It's meant to do a little of both. It's meant to kind of a throwback to a genteel time.
Yeah.
While understanding there were issues with those genteel times.
That's right.
And look to the future and celebrate this town and celebrate a lot of things that it's about, like bourbon. And have some fun. And again, be that rite of spring where okay, it's time to have some fun.
Nobody even this far south opens their pool before May anyways. But, once Derby's here, it's, pools get open and, even though I don't think I think that's still a little too early because we have one, and it can still be a little chilly.
Yeah.
Well, some days are it's feast or famine. You never know.
Yeah. But it really is. It marks a change in the life of the city, for sure.
Well, that's one of the great things about where we're located geographically is our weather is almost always mild.
Yes.
Yes. We have snow, we have heat, but nothing stays around very long.
Yeah.
And you don't get tired of it very quickly. Just stick around; it'll change.
Well, everybody says that.
Yeah, well, it's true here. Yeah,
but it's true everywhere. That's my point. Because that's what weather does. Yes. It changes.
Yeah. Yeah. Climate change happens. I see it 4 times a year.
Exactly. In some places, 8 or 10. But I just love it because it's just I have fond memories as a youth, even though I don't. I wasn't here as a child for those.
Yeah.
I loved reading about the Derby. I encountered it because you get those commemorative glasses listing all of the winners.
Still out there, yeah.
Yeah.
They have them every year. Derby glass collecting is a big thing. There's a huge collectibles market around the Derby, especially here in this local town. I mean, it spreads throughout the area. I can remember as a child mowing the grass in the afternoons on Derby Day, but I'd always be told, "Stop! You need to come in. The Derby's going to run here in a couple of minutes."
Watch the race.
And if you're out somewhere, woe unto you if you were someplace without a television.
That's right.
Yeah, you got to stop and watch.
Yeah, it
you
really
sing the song and then you watch the race. That's just what you do.
It is fun. It's 2 minutes, but it is nail biting. It really is, and it really is a great entertainment.
Yeah, it's one of the great civic festivals in the country. It really is. Again, there's a huge organization to it and fundraising and all that stuff that goes into it, and it works. It works usually really, really well.
Exactly. If you're here, great, come see it. Even if you only come for Oaks, like the poorer of the visitors who come, because not everybody who comes can afford to go to the Derby. A lot of people who live here can't afford to go to the Derby.
Yeah, there's a significant price tag.
Yeah, it's like when you go to the Super Bowl. People who live in that city, most of them don't go because they can't.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. But it really is
the celebrity watching is big, and again, watching for the hats and how everyone dresses, and everybody gets along.
Yes.
At Derby time.
That's true. Yes, that's correct. Everybody wants to put on their best face and recognize, let's be welcoming. Let's be friendly.
One thing I do have to point out, that because I don't live that far from the Derby. Don't live as far or as close as I did in the last house, but still relatively close.
Yeah, you're still in the neighborhood of the track, kind of.
Yeah. One of the interesting things that I find is that the exits off the expressway that lead to the Derby, to the Churchill Downs, are ones that I take.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing that a couple of weeks leading up to Derby, how good it looks. It's mowed. It's
that's right.
Yes.
The landscaping is done up.
That's a feature of spring in this town. The highway crews get out, mow the grass, and pick up all the junk off the expressway.
Potholes get fixed very quickly in the spring. Yes.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the homeless are rousted from their little tent cities because nobody wants to see those. It's an annual thing that gets talked about, but nobody cares because they're going to do it no matter what. Because
clean up the town and make it look good.
But it just always fascinates me, because then after that, they don't mow the grass for the rest of the year. I mean, it seems like that in my end of town. Because, to be fair, my end of town, I honestly believe gets less maintenance than other parts of town. Because the tax base isn't as high as certain other areas. And that's a factor of life in every city.
Yeah, it just is. I mean,
it sucks, but it is. But it just, those of us who live there, in that end of town, and see it, it's always humorous. And of course, the guys who panhandle at the end of the exits, those are, they don't make any money. They have to be moved off. One of the other curious things, that the exit that I use, you pass a strip club to get to, or drive very close by, depending on what route you take. So it's just interesting, all the things that are odd about Derby and Churchill Downs, where it's located, because of the being in the middle of town. But it's still fun stuff. Gentlemen,
I think
we
that
done?
covers it. I
I
think
think
it
that
does. I
covers
think it covers it. So,
Francis, what is next?
Oh man, you're talking about weird. We're going to change over. We've been doing it's history next time. But this was an idea of Martin's that we have to have some palate cleanses built into here. We've done quite a bit on World War II. We're doing a switch over. Next time we're going to talk about Woodstock. I'm still not sure why Martin came up with this idea, but that's okay. We're going to talk about sex, drugs, rock and roll, and the cultural icon that was Woodstock. And we're going to talk a lot about the old wicked 60s, as some folks have said, and how much of a change in our culture that moment exemplified and created. So it's going to be fun. Please join us.
hope you enjoyed another pointless discussion of eternal questions. Remember, new episodes published every Friday at noon Eastern.
Spread the word. We're on all the major podcast platforms. And leave us a comment or review because that helps others find us.
We're on Instagram, Twitter, as well as our website, snakesandotters.com.
I'm Martin.
And I'm Robert.
And I'm Francis. Join us next week. Same snake time, same otter channel.